Morning, Greg.
This meeting is scheduled until 10:45 this morning. And we are resuming the public meeting. Superintendent Horn, would you lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance, please?
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. So this morning, before we start in earnest with our board business, I wanted to congratulate President Robbins and the University of Arizona for winning the Regents Cup this year. That would be the second win in a row. For those of you who are not familiar with the Regents Cup, this is a tri-university debate tournament to celebrate free speech. This year, the students debated topics related to liberty, prosperity, and the Constitution. Students also shared stories about how they believe the Constitution impacts their liberty and prosperity, and the stories they told were powerful. You can view some of the tournament events on the board's YouTube channel, ABOR News. But for now, here's a quick video to recap that terrific event.
It is my great privilege to introduce the 24th governor of the great state of Arizona, Governor Katie Hobbs.
Great reminder to us all that diversity of thought and ideas are good things that make our conversations more rich and robust. These values are at the heart of our democracy as our nation was founded. And they also ring true today. Knowing that students like you are engaging in civil conversations about important issues that are a part of the Regents Cup gives me hope for the future.
This is the Regents Cup. It was commissioned 4 years ago as we launched this event. The artist is Rusty Bowers, who was the Speaker of the House of Arizona at the time, and today is a state and really a national hero, someone who stood up for civil diversity.
Well, congratulations again, President Robbins.
Thank you.
And thank you and your team for hosting this meeting. I'd like to make a statement on shared governance before we begin further in our board business today. First, let me say that we have two very, very good examples of how shared governance works effectively and efficiently and collaboratively. But in recent months, the University of Arizona Senate faculty leadership have made a series of statements about shared governance, what shared governance means, and the role of faculty in board actions. Some of these statements reflect an inaccurate application of shared governance. And as board chair, I'd like to take a moment today to clarify my perspective. Shared governance at Arizona's universities serves to ensure informed decision-making and allows for meaningful participation in institutional government. This participation is accomplished through communication, collaboration, and consultation. Faculty promote academic freedom, advance the instructional mission of the university, encourage research, scholarly activity, and create effort. Faculty propose, initiate, review, formulate, and recommend. Let me be clear. There is absolutely no question of the importance of faculty input in the academic enterprise of the university. The faculty senates, as the elected representatives of the faculty, should serve as a partner to the provost and the president, and they are a very important formal conduit for consultation. There is an inherent obligation to be collaborative and to provide constructive consultation. All shared governance of any kind is subject to the constitutional and statutory responsibilities and powers of the board, and the powers that we as the board delegate to the university presidents. These powers and responsibilities include all powers necessary for the effective governance and administration of Arizona's public universities. While, through the process of shared governance, faculty are expected and encouraged to advise on important decisions, faculty do not approve proposals nor hold veto power over board or presidential action. Elected faculty representatives should not attempt to delay board or presidential action by endlessly withholding productive official commentary on an administrative proposal. Ultimately, the board's action or a presidential decision is the governing action on any issue. I'd like to thank the thousands of faculty members and other stakeholders who take a proactive interest in the health and success of these marvelous institutions. These universities are critical to the success of Arizona and the betterment of her citizens, and your participation in government dramatically improves those outcomes. I welcome all who would honestly participate in this great work. That being said, this board and the presidents selected by this board carry the ultimate responsibility to ensure our success. The board is currently considering taking official action to further clarify these principles. Thank you. Our first item on today's agenda is the call to the audience. If you have any materials for the regents, please give them to our board secretary, Suzanne Templin, who is where? Over here in the corner. And she will distribute them to the regents. Pursuant to board policy, time has been set aside for the call to the audience. This is an opportunity for individuals to address the entire board in a public setting to express their views or concerns regarding matters of board governance. The board reserves the right to limit the number of presenters on any one single topic. Regents do not respond to comments made during the call to the audience. However, we do hear your remarks and we ask the appropriate person to follow up and provide us with information on any issues raised. When you're called to speak, please proceed to the lectern. To keep us on schedule, each speaker has no more than 3 minutes. As a courtesy to each speaker, Suzanne will hold up a sign signaling how much time you have remaining. At the end of your 3 minutes, we ask that you conclude your remarks. Suzanne?
Our first speaker is Justal Hecht, followed by Riley Hamilton.
Hello, my name is Justine Hecht, and I am a product of Arizona higher education. I graduated from Glendale Community College before transferring to transferring to NAU to pursue a bachelor's degree. And then I went to ASU for a master's degree. I'm currently pursuing a PhD at that same institution. And I also teach at a community college now in Phoenix as well. My students at the community college ask me if they should go on to higher education, and I don't know what to tell them anymore. I'm a person who loves education and learning more than I can actually put into words. But when my students ask me these questions, and I think about the $150,000 in student loan debt that I have, because my parents were working class, because my mother was disabled, and because my father was the only breadwinner for our family, and in order to go to school, I had to take out loans. Over my decades of education, I saw nothing but the cost of living increase, the cost of tuition increase. Never once did wages increase in parallel with those rising costs. And so as many people like myself in my generation, I subsidize the lack of a living wage with student loans. And yet you all are sitting here today, seriously considering increasing our fees and increasing our tuition, when we have told you time and time again how hurt we have been by record-setting inflation. We cannot pay our bills. We do not know where our rent is going to come from, how we're going to put food on the table for our families. We do not know how we're going to pay childcare. And the rest of you, the people who are in this room at this table, who make decisions without us all the time, don't have to worry about those same things. You tell us that we are here, that you're doing this to increase tuition because higher education is a public good, but then you're increasing the tuition so it gets privatized through federal loans, right? And we cannot afford to live. We cannot afford to live. So this is why we at United Campus Workers are demanding that student fees be waived for all campus workers at all 3 universities. And while I highly doubt that you're going to vote no on the fees and the tuition increase today, I want you all to know that we are watching. And not only are we watching, the entire world is watching. And we are just getting started. We are just getting started. You can only squeeze people so much before we burst, and we are not going away until our demands are met. I implore you to do the right thing today and vote no on tuition increases, vote no on fee increases, waive our student fees, because we deserve dignity, we deserve respect, and we deserve to live. And we are not going away until this is done. Thank you.
Riley Hamilton, followed by Charlie Durs.
Good morning. My name is Riley Hamilton. I am a graduate student at Northern Arizona University, here to speak on the essential push to abolish student fees for student workers in Arizona, an initiative that already has thousands of supporters across the state. Graduate students are struck with the financial burden of paying over $1,000 to our universities, our employers, and mandatory fees each year. In a survey conducted amongst graduate students at Northern Arizona University, nearly 80% responded that they pay for these fees either out of pocket or by taking out additional loans. We are not only students at universities in Arizona, we are faculty essential to the function of universities in Arizona. When these financial hardships are placed upon us, not only does our opportunity for financial well-being suffer, but education suffers. If faculty, which includes graduate students, suffers, which is currently the case, universities in Arizona are significantly worse off. If you care about students across this state and represent them as you purport to do, it's time to end fees and create a fee waiver. It's also time to start truly listening to student needs, including by making public comment at ABOR meetings easily accessible, not obtuse and elusive and ever-changing. It's a shame that my fellow graduate students from NAU could not be at this meeting to give comment because of veiled plan changes by the Board of Regents. And it's a shame that ABOR continues to make clear that it cares first about profit, not about student welfare or student concerns in Arizona. It is our right as students of Arizona public universities to receive affordable access to higher education, and it's your job as the governing body of these institutions to make that happen for all of us. Arizona students need a fee waiver now, and I encourage you to vote in favor of it today.
Charlie Durs, followed by Tessa Dysart.
Good morning, everyone. My name is Charlie and I'm an undergraduate joining you from NAU. Quite the drive, but I thought it was important to come here to represent myself, not only myself, but also my peers, the student workers that work alongside me, the grad students who I work with, and the faculty who do not get their fair share. I am also a student worker. I currently work 3 jobs on campus just to make things work. And even though I'm supposed to be only working 26 hours, I often work 80 hours because of the needs of my community. I work as a campus living community assistant in gender inclusive housing, and there is seriously not enough resources to cover the mental emotional, and physical needs of this community. With that being said, I am paid rent and food, which means that on most weeks, I'm supposed to be getting $12 an hour, but on some weeks I make $3 an hour, which I don't think is fair, being that I'm often the first responder when it comes to emergencies, to fires, to suicide attempts. Oftentimes when PD is laughing in the hallways, we are the ones who have to come in with no specialized training to support these students. With that being said, with this being the norm, we are still thinking about a tuition fee increase, which for the students I serve is unrealistic. My students are already taking out loans, working jobs. A lot of us are disabled and are unable to pay for medical fees while in school because of the increased need. And this is not just something that has been shared between me and my peers or me and the students that I serve on a daily basis. This is also something that students across Arizona have also shared. Hundreds of students signed on to the Arizona Students Association letter calling for tuition fees to not increase, as already the fee is just too high. Looking at our letter, if you do read it, it is mentioned some people at these universities are being paid close to millions of dollars while you can't even pay me minimum wage. And so really, you're already been given so much money. There's obviously something that needs to be changed here. Asking students who are already on loans, who are already struggling, who can't pay for groceries for more money is not going to be the solution in this situation. Other than that, also faculty, hundreds of organizations covering thousands of students across Arizona, and state officials who represent Arizona families, students current, students past, and students future. So the people of Arizona are really calling for this. We are already paying too much, and we really just want to see that college is affordable and accessible. Thank you.
Tessa Dysart, followed by Marcia Klotz.
I'm short. Chair Manson, members of the board. My name is Tessa Dysart. I'm the Assistant Director of Legal Writing and a Clinical Professor of Law at the University of Arizona James E. Rogers College of Law. I also serve as the elected secretary of our Faculty Senate. I speak to you in my own capacity, although I know that other elected senators share my views. I understand that you received a letter from two of our Senate leaders concerning items in your board book that relate in part to the integration of UAGC into the University of Arizona. When I read this letter, I was struck by its critique of the shared governance processes that have occurred in integrating UAGC into the university. Since I've participated in those processes, I would like to clarify the role that shared governance has played in the UAGC integration. When President Robbins approached the Senate Executive Committee, I was a member at that time, about the inevitable integration of UAGC, many members, myself included, expressed concerns. We expressed the need for faculty involvement, which led to the creation of working groups to help with the integration. Because of my concerns, I agreed to serve as a working group co-lead. I saw that participating collaboratively in the working groups to be a key part of shared governance and a chance to work with the administration to address the faculty concerns. Early in the working group process, the chair of the faculty was invited to recommend senators for the working groups. She declined, and at times she and others have described the Senate's role over the integration as one of oversight. Given the Senate's refusal to participate in the UAGC integration, I, along with other members of shared governance, recommended elected senators and other faculty leaders to serve on the integration working groups. 3 of these working groups are, maybe I should say, were faculty members. One is now the director of Arizona Online, also a very relevant party. 2 are elected senators. Other elected senators serve on the working groups. From my perspective, any failure in shared governance rests with the Senate and its refusal to participate in the integration working groups. While some in the Senate may want oversight, oversight is not participation, and oversight, of course, is your role. Shared governance, as Chair Manson mentioned, at the University of Arizona is by no means perfect. But with the UAGC integration, I've seen an active effort by the administration to work with faculty. To be successful, these efforts must be reciprocated by the faculty. I'm extremely grateful to the faculty members who have participated in the integration efforts. It's been a lot of work.
and I look forward to our continued efforts on this important project. I see great potential for UAGC. There's concerns, but I'm excited moving forward. Thank you.
Marcia Klotz, followed by Dr. Veda Kowalski.
Good morning. My name is Marcia Klotz. I'm an assistant professor of English here at the U of Arizona. I have been asked to speak today on behalf of our union and especially contingent faculty at ASU and the U of A. We are demanding dignified working conditions for all contingent faculty. This academic year, nearly 8,000 first-year students enrolled in the Foundation's writing courses here at the U of A. There, they learned a skill that will be essential no matter what they choose to study as a major, how to express themselves succinctly and clearly through writing. They learned to analyze, research, synthesize, organize, and revise, the skills that will help them find success throughout their academic career. Moreover, these are the smaller classes that build community, that develop a sense of belonging, establishing positive student experiences, and building retention rates at the university. But the vast majority of the instructors for these classes are contingent faculty, most working on year-to-year contracts with no job security and no paths to promotion. Their wages have stagnated at $44,000 a year since 2018. When a student's first impression of university comes from an instructor who doesn't know whether they will have a job next year, who can make no plans to stay in town or start a family, and who cannot pay rent on their salary, that has a lasting impact on that student's education. I want to share with you some of the stories from the lived experiences of these contingent faculty. Many are dealing with health problems due to the stress of not knowing if their contracts will be renewed or what they will be teaching until the very last minute. Course assignments are regularly given or canceled the week before classes start. Many struggle under student debt loans that are impossible to pay off on their meager salary. Some work 3 jobs and are still unable to keep up with the cost of living expenses. They work constantly, yet don't earn enough to even hope to buy their own homes. One writes, quote, "When I was accepted into a PhD program many years ago, I thought that this enormous leap into a whole new world was going to secure my future. I was a young single mom living in poverty and had been socialized to believe that higher education was my ticket out for myself and my child. I fought many structural barriers to obtain my education, but I have continued to live in poverty as a contingent faculty member." These are just some experience. There's so many more that I could not share in the 3 minutes that I've been allotted here. When you are making decisions that impact contingent faculty, I hope you will remember these stories and the lived experiences of our colleagues, people who make higher education impactful for future generations. These are the dreamers who believe in the power of education and who want to pass on that commitment to others. Education must not and cannot be transactional. It should be transformational. Our contingent faculty are brilliant and dedicated professionals with a deep commitment to their vocation and to their students' well-being. Our working conditions are our students' learning conditions. I am delivering to you today on behalf of our union, UCWAZ, a petition with more than 1,000 signatures supporting the demands for dignified working conditions for all contingent faculty. Thank you for your time.
Dr. Veda Kowalski, followed by Grace Harrington.
Good morning. On behalf of the Dean of Students Office, we want to thank President Robbins for meeting with us and hearing our concerns. But we'd also like to make the following statement to the Board of Regents. My name is Dr. Veda Kowalski, Assistant Dean of Students, and we in the Dean of Students Office are currently exposed to a hostile work environment. We are besieged with attacks on our professionalism and integrity. Staff weaponizing students against us for their own gain, the spreading of lies and misinformation, and attacks on women of color in leadership positions. The harassment has to stop. We fully support Vice Provost for Campus Life and Dean of Students, Kendall Washington White, in her role, and strongly urge you to inform the campus community that you too give your support and will not seek her resignation. What we see is the acceptance of lies over truth, doing what is convenient and easy instead of what is right, remaining silent instead of taking a stand against campaigns meant to malign and hurt good and talented people who only want to do their jobs, free from hateful rhetoric and threats. Many are wanting to cast judgment against the Dean of Students Office when they are not privy to receive information based on policy and legal restrictions. For example, I stand before you in opposition to the reports that the Dean of Students Office was negligent in their response that resulted in the murder of a beloved faculty member. I stand before you today because I have never been interviewed by anyone regarding the actions and activities taken by the Dean of Students Office 6 months prior to the tragedy. And yet, my personal identifying information was released nationwide. You have not heard my story. Standing here now, I wonder what the outcome will be of this public statement. Will I be the next woman of color that is targeted, harassed, and removed from my position? As members of the Dean of Students Office, we stand in our power in supporting our students in their social emotional development, and we stand in our power to engage our community in moving through our trauma. We stand in our power in having a moral compass and choosing what is right, what is true, and what is just. And we stand in our power in promoting the values of this institution. Thank you for your time.
Grace Harrington, followed by Noisha Alder-Ferry.
Hi, my name is Grace Harrington, and I'm a current sophomore and Force intern here at the University of Arizona. I do want to thank the board for providing space for us to speak today. On behalf of the Force internship run through the Women and Gender Resource Center on campus, I'm here to present an issue of campus safety. On April 12th, I was leading a group of local Chicanx Indigenous high school students on a tour around areas of campus. I had to cross the mall in order to get them to their destination, and I had to provide content and trigger warnings for the students before proceeding. What was shown on the mall that day were gory and distressing images. In addition to that, students were faced with hate speech as instigated by demonstrators. As a reaction to this triggering display on the mall, the Women and Gender Resource Center and Force provided emergency counseling resources to over 30 students who were in distress. As a student organization, our capabilities in handling stressful situations and their effects on other students was and is not in our capacity. Force was overwhelmed with this reaction. All the while, during the protest itself, the Dean of Students, Kendall Washington White, did not do anything to warn or support students before or after the demonstration. Kendall did not open any outlets for communication to talk to students afterwards. In fact, she stood on the mall, laughed at students as they protest, and filmed students protesting without their consent. Her lack of action in supporting students affected by these images and hate speech, some of them received, shows that she does not fit the role that she has. As a student organization, Force needs the support of the university and faculty in dire times like these, though her attitude just proves to show that she is not fit to serve students. As a result, Force calls for the resignation of Kendall Washington White. Thank you.
Noisha Alder-Ferry, Micah, followed by Micah Kaufman.
Hello, my name is Nusha, and I'm an incoming co-director of an ASUA student organization called Force. Force doesn't stand for these statements of anti-abortion rhetoric, but we also don't stand for the administration that actively damages and harms our students from completing their education and moving forward to a career path. Let me be transparent with you. You can ban the anti-abortion statements, but you cannot ban the systemic issue without the resignation of Kendall Washington White first. This isn't the first time something like this has happened to affect the livelihood and safety of our students. For example, the lack of urgency leading up to Professor Meixner's death in the fall. When there were multiple emails wanting a sense of safety, they were ignored. Meanwhile, Force works to provide basic needs for students. This includes food, education, and safety procedures, and even counseling for those for those same harms caused by the institution with the death of our professor. However, this disproportionately affects our Black, Indigenous, and people of color students. The Dean of Students is supposed to help us, and instead, we underfund our programs that resource these basic needs. And Force provides the only free menstrual products on campus. And to this point in the academic year, we have served over 1,000 students with their basic needs, education opportunities, and around diversity and inclusion and a safe community. The demand for our services is rising, and without proper funding, we cannot supply students with their needs, and we need an administration that supports us. And Force has been threatened with defunding every year since 2019 by Kendall Washington White specifically. Arizona Board of Regents, I'm here today to beg one more institution to care for us, to see the fact that Force has experienced direct harm from the Dean of Students, and specifically Kendall Washington White. I'm not here to talk about the College of Republicans, because when you take down these signs, they'll put up more with something else against us. They'll still call us hard slurs with hate speech. I'm here to talk about the essential failure in taking care of our students when this happened. Why was I, a 19-year-old student, trying to counsel 50 people in a workday for 12 hours when it is not my job? However, that is exactly what Kendall Washington White's job is to do. It is to find the resources to help these students at least. She does not keep us safe. And so because of this, on behalf of Force, we call for the resignation of Kendall Washington White. Thank you.
Micah Kaufman, followed by Annie V.
Hello, my name is Micah Kaufman. I am a co-director of Pride Alliance. I'm in my 5th year and I use they, them pronouns. I want to start off by saying that it is absolutely ridiculous that the Center of Bioethical Reform was allowed here on campus to display those gory and upsetting images. Workers in the cultural center resources were staying for 12 hours to care for our students. That is not their job. The university did not provide adequate warning or resources for this event, which reflects the institutional lack of consideration and care for all of us here. Why was nobody warned? We got more warning for the presence of a helicopter at the very edge of the mall than for images of bloody, gory mutilation, genocide, victim blaming, racism, and anti-Semitism. And that was an easy email to send. So why did we not receive an email? Was it because the Dean of Students offices did not want to give us, the student body, the opportunity to cause chaos? If you don't know what I'm referencing, an email was leaked, sending from Dr. Kendall Washington White to Dr. Treya Allen, John Dudas, and many others, stating that they were going to release employees, quote unquote, aligned with the directors of the cultural resource centers. To me, this shows that admin knows that we care about our resource centers, that we believe they do good and benefit the campus community to a great extent. They were going to wait to fire the staff until we were all gone because they knew that it would upset us. And to me, that is highly offensive. I cannot reiterate how much we as students do not want to cause chaos. We have to go to class. We have to get jobs. We have so many responsibilities. And in my free time, I would much rather be anything but engaging myself directly with the harm I face as a student, much less as a trans, non-binary student, which is a whole other subject that I cannot cover in 3 minutes. But we have to be engaged with this harm because we do not want to lose the things that keep us here, like our sense of safety, like our sense of community, like our fucking lunches. Images of dead bodies were displayed all day right outside the Union, our hub for food and friends. On the 2 days that those people were here, our community was already disrupted merely by their presence. And administration showed no concern or compassion for any of us. So what are we supposed to do? People have complained, people have made demands, people have been told not to complain by the very institutions that are supposed to support us, by the Dean of Students. We need support. We want this culture of fear and silence gone. We need a new administration who will care for us and show their care for us. This includes redefining the free speech policies to explicitly exclude hate speech and to enforce that because it is not the Cultural Resource Center's job to be the only spaces on campus in which minoritized students feel in community. On behalf of Pride Alliance, I'm calling
for there to be a limit, a line specifically barring users of campus space from traumatizing already traumatized populations like my queer and trans community. I also call for the resignation and replacement of the current Dean of Students, Kendall Washington White, as well as the increasingly toxic environment that she stewards and oversees. Thank you.
Annie Vi, followed by Stephen Parr.
The University of Arizona has been home to many student organizations, to resource centers, and to countless generations of Wildcats ever since 1885. The University of Arizona is also home to panic. It is home to fear. It is home to violence. Violence which was prevalent April 13th of 2023, when billboards over 10 feet tall displaying explicit gore, blood, and death were allowed, approved, accepted. In fact, they were endorsed by the University of Arizona. Placed in one of the most public and transitable areas of campus for thousands to see, for hundreds of staff, hundreds of professors, hundreds of students, hundreds of children to be exposed to gore so explicit that the news channels had to censor it in order for it to be broadcasted. Students walking to class, children touring the campus, staff going on their way to work were expected to continue on their way and act as though the displayed explicit images do not cause trauma, impact, or shock. The same way the University of Arizona expected their students to simply go to class the day Dr. Meixner was murdered on this very campus, due to the University of Arizona's neglect. This is violence, violence of hundreds of students experiencing trauma. This is fear, fear of students walking to class, afraid of being called degrading slurs. This is the University of Arizona, a university which promotes, encourages fear, violence, hate, a university that did not respond when a professor was violently murdered on this very campus, a university that did not respond when thousands of traumatized students demanded a change, a university that did not respond when children were exposed to dead bodies, a university that hears us but never listens. I am here because I am part of this university. I am here because I have seen how the university expects resource centers to clean up their mess, to listen to over 50 student testimonials in one day. Disrespected cultural resource center directors almost being fired. Student organizations expected to continue their education while being continuously diminished. You expect us to do our jobs, to go to class, to be Wildcats. You are not welcoming. You are not safe. You are not home to anything other than violence. I represent ASUA's Pride Alliance, a student organization which promotes diversity, inclusion, kindness, and safety. We are one of the many student organizations who have to stand tall and broad for our values, even in an institution that does not abide by them. As a representative of ASUA's Pride Alliance, I demand for the resignation of the head of Dean of Students, Kendall Washington White, for creating a hostile work environment in the resource centers, for allowing hundreds of students to be traumatized, for allowing children to be exposed to billboards of blood, gore, and death. Children touring this very university the same day that billboards had to be censored on the news. We demand for the university to revisit the AWR First Amendment policy and acknowledge the violation that occurred. We demand for this violent university to clean up their own mess. Thank you.
Stephen Parr, followed by Patrick Robles.
Good morning, everybody. My name is Stephen Power. I'm a graduate student in the writing program at the University of Arizona and a member of UCW AZ. Let's be real. Living in Arizona has gotten very expensive. Recent data shows that people must make over $25 an hour to live comfortably in Arizona. A livable wage ensures that workers can meet their basic needs and live with dignity. This includes being able to afford housing, food, transportation, healthcare, and other necessities of life. When workers are paid a fair wage, they can participate more fully in their role as campus workers and more effectively serve the campus community, and ultimately have a better quality of life. Paying a livable wage is simply the right thing to do. Campus workers are the backbone and the lifeblood of our universities. When we pay workers a livable wage, we acknowledge their contributions to our universities and help to create a more just and equitable campus. According to the Arizona Republic, the top 20 highest paid public employees in Arizona during the 2021 fiscal year all worked for either UA or ASU, mostly in the basketball and football programs, except for the presidents, of course. The combined annual income of these 20 people was, wait for it, $21.5 million. Meanwhile, over 40% of the workforce at the University of Arizona and 33% at Arizona State continues to earn less than a livable wage. That's over 8,000 workers who are struggling to afford their day-to-day expenses. Many juggle multiple jobs just to make ends meet, and many have children and other loved ones to care for. In front of me, I have over 1,700 signatures from supporters calling for higher wages through our $25 by 2025 campaign. These supporters are campus workers, students, and community allies who believe that not a single campus worker should earn less than a livable wage. By increasing the wage floor for these workers to $25 per hour, we know that at least 8,000 workers across UA and ASU will benefit. We, the people who have signed these petitions and the people who are here this morning, call on campus administrators and the Arizona Board of Regents to increase worker pay. Thank you.
Patrick Robles, followed by Joya Woods.
Good morning, Chair Manson, members of the board, university administration, and members of our community. My name is Patrick Robles, and I'm the student body president of the University of Arizona, the outgoing student body president. Last week on our beautiful campus, we had a not so beautiful pro-life demonstration on the U of A Mall. This demonstration had graphic imagery of fetuses, swastikas, images of lynchings and genocide. And in addition to this imagery, people associated with the display were shouting racial slurs, misogynistic comments, and members of our university community. The demonstration, sponsored by the College Republicans in conjunction with the Center for Bioethical Reform, took place on approved mall space. The process for mall approval, as understood by the student government, begins with the Office of General Counsel, UAPD, Ground Services, Facility Management, and the Dean of Students Office, then the Campus Mall Use Committee. It is without a doubt that we, the students, appreciate the First Amendment because, well, here I am speaking to you all, and so have many of my fellow Wildcats. But ARS 15-1866 reads, and I cut and paste a portion of this section. This section does not prevent universities and community colleges from regulating student speech or activity that is prohibited by law, except as otherwise provided by this article. Universities and community colleges may restrict student expression only for expressive activity that is not protected by the First Amendment of the United States Constitution, including harassment. For the purpose of this paragraph, harassment means only that expression that is so severe, pervasive, and subjectively and objectively offensive that unreasonably interferes with an individual's access to educational opportunities or benefits provided by the university or community college. Last week on our campus, students were called the N-word with the hard R. Students were harassed on our campus about abortion, forced to view imagery that was incredibly graphic on their way to class. So were families. So were children touring our schools. So were incoming Wildcats who may have based their decision on their decision to come here based on their experience that day. As a result of this demonstration, over 50 students sought mental support inside the Women and Gender Resource Center. Look, abortion is a deeply personal decision. Students should not be harassed on their way to class for the right to choose. I would like to ask the Arizona Board of Regents to revisit this policy and seek its proper enforcement so that something like this does not happen on our campus again. So with all that being said, we hope that you've listened to my comment this morning and the comments before me and revisit what the First Amendment policy, ARS 15-1866, looks like in the future on our campuses in our beautiful state. Thank you very much.
Joya Woods.
Good morning, Chair Manson, Regents, University Presidents, and guests.
My name is Joya Woods. I'm a professor of humanities at NAU and the chair of the Department of Comparative Cultural Studies there. Over my 22-year career, I estimate I've taught about 4,000 students in a way that I hope enhances their awareness of diverse points of view and prepares them to live, work, and play in a society where collaboration is critical to innovation. And collaboration is built on the ability to cultivate empathy, which is impossible without diversity education. So I'm here to speak a word in support of DEIJ initiatives and efforts across the 3 public universities. Enhanced diversity increases the likelihood that different skills, experiences, and ideas come together, especially in collective problem solving. And I think we can all agree that without functioning collectives, we have little chance at solving the problems that vex us, especially the specter of climate breakdown. We need all skills and points of view to come together. Numerous bills, as you know, have recently been proposed nationally and in the state of Arizona that target diversity education, claiming this kind of education is ideologically driven. What these bills fail to acknowledge is that the teaching of a narrow set of viewpoints and histories is itself ideologically driven, informed by a long history of white supremacy. This kind of narrow teaching serves no one. The role of the university is to promote an educated workforce and increase educational attainment, which leads to a robust state economy. Our economy cannot thrive unless diversity education thrives. I'm also past president of the Faculty Senate at NAU, and over the years, I've had the wonderful occasion to hear Regent Manson speak about the value of civil discourse. I know many of you have as well. Civil discourse is a skill we can teach at the university, but we cannot do so without its sister skill, empathy. Arizona faculty are disciplinary and pedagogical experts who are trained to teach the breadth of knowledge in a general studies educational framework. Arizona's students deserve faculty who can deliver this knowledge in ways that are responsive to the state's changing demographics. When students are supported and are equipped with the cultural competencies required to understand people who differ from them across multiple kinds of difference, we can enhance social empathy and approach the problems that continue to challenge us. I want to thank the Regents for their continued support of our DEIJ initiatives at our 3 public universities and urge them to continue with courage to defend faculty's academic freedom in teaching and promoting diversity, equity, inclusion, and justice. Thank you.
Thank you, Chair Manson.
Thank you. Thank you all for your comments. We appreciate your willingness to communicate with us. At this point, our next item on the agenda is the report on the Finance, Capital, and Resources Committee, and I would ask Regent Pacheco to provide the report.
Thank you, Chairman. The Finance and Capital Committee agenda includes items 2 through 4 and 25. In addition, items 20 through 24 will be approved as part of the consent agenda later this morning. Item number 2. Report on finance. Item number 2. I will give a report on the Finance, Capital, and Resources Committee meeting that was held on March 23rd. At this meeting, the committee discussed 3 primary items, which will be approved today as part of the consent agenda later this morning. The first, retirement system. The committee reviewed and accepted each university's share of assets and liabilities under the public safety personnel retirement system based on the most recent actuarial reports. Second, policy amendments. The committee reviewed on first reading the proposed revisions to ABOR's policy 6-1001 titled Multiple Year Appointments of Head Coaches and the Intercollegiate Athletic Directors. Item 3. Sunset fee review. The committee reviewed each university's sunset review of fees report for calendar year 2022. At this meeting, we also discussed the Colorado University system, which is the second in a series of systems that we will be reviewing for best practices. This item did not require committee action. Are there any questions? And this item was really for information only. At this point, I will now turn the meeting back over to Chair Manson to preside over item 3 on university tuition fee and rate proposals.
Thank you, Regent Pacheco. So on March 23rd, the Finance, Capital and Resources Committee discussed the 23-24 tuition and fees and housing and dining proposals and maximum growth rates through academic year 28-29. This gave the committee the opportunity to take a deeper dive into the president's recommendations and gain a better understanding of the requests before us today. A tuition hearing was held on March 28th that allowed for public comment on the proposals. The hearing was set up as a virtual hearing, and we had 14 individuals speak at the hearing and approximately 150 viewers throughout our live stream. We have also received written comments from the public, and we appreciate and thank those of you who took the time and effort to provide your feedback. We know our university presidents are working diligently to ensure our universities are as efficient as possible and that we stay committed to access and affordability. With modest increases this year and no tuition increases in the 2 prior years, the president's proposals reflect some of the financial pressures faced today. Today, the board is asked to set resident and non-resident tuition and mandatory fees, college fees, program fees, and other academic fees, as well as residence housing and meal plans for the 23-24 academic year. The board is also being asked to set growth rates for resident tuition, fees, and campus housing and dining that will serve as the maximum rate of increase for academic years 24-25 through 28-29. Tuition growth rates are only being established for resident students. Policy provides additional limits for non-resident and online students. Before we proceed with the motions, I'm going to ask each of the presidents to briefly comment on their proposals. I will begin with President Crow.
Thank you, Regent Manson. So let me say that the university that I was able to become president of about 20 years ago was an institution not successful. It had a low tuition, low financial aid model. It had a very limited 4-year graduation rate. It had very limited diversity. It had very limited success for diverse students from lower income families. In particular, it was underperforming across a range of areas. It took many years to restructure from a low tuition, low financial aid model to a modest tuition, high financial aid model, a restructuring of the entire finances of the institution, which has then led to outcomes that we never even imagined possible. We more than doubled the 4-year graduation rate. We diversified the student body to be totally representative of the socioeconomic diversity of the state. We diversified the student body ethnically beyond anything that had ever been imagined before. The majority of the students coming into our first year full-time freshman class from Arizona are non-white students. That a few years before was 1 or 2% of that freshman class were non-white students. So this is a completely transformed institution from the new system that we have in place. Once implementing that system, we were then able to put in place a model over a 10-year timeframe in which we guaranteed over a 10-year timeframe that we would never raise in-state tuition by more than 3% per year. We went through that entire 10-year timeframe and raised tuition only about 1.7% during that timeframe, with several zeros in there also. The objective is to find an institution that can work, to find an institution that has the resources that it needs to be able to move forward for all of our students to be successful. We went through that initial 10-year timeframe and then proposed to the regents as a model, not as a policy, a second 10-year timeframe where we would maintain the exact same policy. Those policies have allowed ASU to have the lowest tuition for an in-state student in Arizona, the lowest tuition to pursue a bachelor's degree in Arizona from a university. Those are 2 outcomes that are very, very positive, and the broadest access to the institution and the broadest success in the institution in its entire history. So therefore, the model has been very, very, very successful. We are making no changes in that model. I'll also say that our tuition among public research universities is in the lower quarter, and our costs are in the lowest 10%. And so this is a framing of the way that we're running the institution itself. So our proposal for the tuition for the year 23-24, unfortunately, is at the high level of our limit, 3% for in-state students. because of the issues that we're dealing with the cost of inflation, and also significant adjustments that we're making in compensation for contract faculty, for hourly employees, for student workers and others. And there are a number of details there that the regents, if they would like additional information, we're happy to discuss. And then a 5% tuition proposal for out-of-state students and international students. And in both of those cases, we're not attempting to drive that tuition to the maximum level that might be attainable in the market, where we have stated for more than 10 years that we will maintain tuition for out-of-state students and international students at the average level of universities around the United States, public and private. Our proposal then going forward is to maintain the strategy that we've had now for more than 10 years, for 10 more years, in which the 24 to 29 fiscal years fall within that window, which would be then to never increase the tuition for an in-state student by more than 3%. And that we will continue going forward. And then also to renew our commitment to financial aid. We have increased our spending on financial aid from our own internal resources by 7-fold recently. We have altered the trajectory of our students and the success of our students in this model. Now, this is a model that takes some time and energy to sort of work through and see how it was successful. The 4-year graduation rate at this institution in 1985 was 10%. The student body was 98 to 99% white, and almost no one came from the middle class or below to attend the university. That's not a public university. A public university is a university by which you find some way, one way or another, and in Arizona, not with significant public investment, you find some way to advance the university to success. We have found that way. We believe that we can make it work on the systems that we have in place. We're into our 12th or 13th year of this process. We believe that we can continue that process into the future, and we'll continue to have the lowest tuition, the highest financial aid, and ongoing success outcomes for our students. Thank you.
Thank you, President Crowe. Are there any questions for President Crowe? Okay, seeing none, I will move on to President Cruz Rivera and NAU.
Thank you, Chair Manson. I will like to ask that our CFO, Bjorn Flogstad, join us in case there are any questions from the board. I will just provide some general framing as to our tuition proposal. I am very pleased to introduce for your formal vote, Northern Arizona University's tuition and fee proposal for 2023-24, as well as our multi-year maximum growth rates for 2024 through 2029. The proposal we have presented is the product of much deliberation, consultation with student leaders, and engagement with our community through our established shared governance structures to establish a mission-aligned, transparent, and sustainable tuition and fee rate. The proposal is designed to broaden access to the excellence of our great university. It supports our A2E, access to excellence tuition coverage for students with household incomes under $65,000 a year. That represents 1 out of every 2 households in Arizona. It supports significant projected increases in graduate student stipends and health insurance and tuition remission costs for our graduate students. It complements our efforts to secure additional public and private funding to advance our mission. And of course, it complements our continued work to contain the rapidly increasing operational costs related to inflationary pressures that universities are simply not immune from. Importantly as well, our proposal provides the resources necessary with due transparency and predictability for our students and their families to continue to advance our mission by investing in our talented faculty and staff, by addressing critical infrastructure needs, and providing affordability to all of our students, especially those students who stand to gain the most from post-secondary education, the working class students, families, and communities of our state who seek a better future. Thank you for your partnership in supporting Northern Arizona University as we seek to improve the educational experience of our students and the post-college outcomes of our graduates. And we are happy to take any questions you may have.
Are there any questions from the board for NAU? Seeing none, I will move on to University of Arizona and President Robbins.
Thank you, Chair Manson and Regents, for considering our proposal. I've spoken at length at the tuition hearing and recent FCR committee meeting about the specifics of the proposal. And today I'll talk about the process of time that was spent by our dedicated team to develop our proposal over a year-long conversation with our student leaders. Today, instead, I want to just briefly emphasize what this proposal will mean for our students, our faculty and staff, and the people of Arizona. Our students and their families want consistency in the ability to plan ahead. We hear it loud and clear from them. They want us to keep our tuition guarantee. 99% of the continuing undergraduate students will see no increase in tuition throughout their time here. I know there are different schools of thought on this, especially as we move toward multi-year tuition setting policies. But for now, we believe maintaining the tuition guarantee program keeps us competitive with similar universities in other states. Our proposed growth rates are below inflationary measures and will allow us to continue offering robust financial aid for our students. We're really excited about you moving forward to the multi-year tuition and fee setting, both because combined with our tuition guarantee program, it provides longer-term forecasting for our students and families. And because we'll be announcing annual tuition and fee rates earlier in the year, allowing for an easier planning process each year. That will mean that we can focus our time and energy on supporting our amazing faculty and staff and recruiting new colleagues to join us. Thank you.
Thank you. Any questions for President Robbins and U of A? Okay. Are there any other questions or comments before we move on to the motions? Okay. I would like to point out that today's motions do not include the following: tuition or mandatory fees currently charged to students if no changes are proposed for 23-24, or if increases were approved in prior years, and the Arizona Financial Aid Trust, which is automatically calculated at 1% of the resident undergraduate tuition rate. So if there are no concerns, I am going to move forward. We will have 4 to 5 motions per university to approve the various parts of the tuition and fee packages. And by statute, a roll call vote is required on the tuition and fees motions. We will take one university at a time and vote on all of their proposals. The first motion is Arizona State resident tuition. And as it relates to resident students at Arizona State University, I move the following: increase base tuition by 3% for the 23-24 academic year for both undergraduate and graduate immersion students at all ASU campuses. This action will increase tuition to $11,308 for undergraduate resident students, except for freshmen and sophomores in the Polytechnic School and New College, which will increase to $10,178, and for students at colleges at Lake Havasu City and rural community college-based programs, which will increase to $6,786. And resident graduate students' base tuition will increase to $12,376. Is there a second?
Second.
Any questions or comments? We have a motion and a second. Suzanne, can you please do the roll call?
Yes, Johnson. Regent Duval.
I vote aye, and I'd like to explain my vote. I would first like to thank the students for your stories, your passion, your shared experience, which we hear. No matter how the tuition votes go, I want you to know that your lived experience motivates us in many ways. It is to prioritize as much institutional financial aid as possible. It is to go to the state capitol and be as persuasive as possible that the state must share in the investment in our future workforce. It drives us relentlessly to focus on institutional costs and to continue our reputation as one of the most efficient systems in the United States. So you're heard. Student loan debt is crushing too many families. We know this, and I have voted both yes and no on past tuition proposals. Thank you. You are heard. You are heard. You are heard.
Okay.
Thank you.
Suzanne, could you please continue the roll call vote?
Regent Mata.
Can I just finish my point? And you are heard and appreciate your passion. I do want to say this year's vote for me is a yes for these reasons. The state has not increased its investment, while we have grown student enrollment by 7 to 10%, depending upon the institution. I'm a volunteer on the Board of Regents, but thank you. Number two, we have reached $1 billion in state institutional aid to students, a priority which this board is constantly focused to make sure that we are keeping net tuition as close. Thank you. I've heard you. I appreciate it. And I appreciate your hearing me as well. This proposal caps tuition and gives families and students predictability going forward. And it does so at half the rate of inflation, which I think is an important commitment. But most importantly, it is time that we send the signal to the faculty that are the core institutional qualitative component of these institutions, that your degrees that we give you have market value. They have market value because we draw and we retain good faculty. And in order to do that, we need to pay them good wages. So this proposal increases faculty salaries by 6% and more in some cases, twice the amount of the tuition raise and equal with the rate of inflation. That is the right priority. So the priority of more institutional aid, the priority of trying to cut costs where we can, the priority of investing in the dignity and talent of our faculty results in my deciding this year that my vote is a yes. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Thank you, Regent Duvall. Suzanne?
Regent Mata.
Thank you, Chair Manson. I echo what Regent Duvall said, and it's a yes.
Regent Herbold.
Yes.
Regent Pacheco. Yes. Regent Brewster.
Yes.
Regent Goodyear.
Yes.
Regent Kanya.
Yes.
Superintendent Horn.
Because I wasn't able to be here for the discussion of tuition, I feel like the proper thing to do is for me to abstain on all of these motions. And in the future, if the issue comes up, I'll be sure to be present for the discussion so I can vote on this important issue.
Thank you.
Chair Manson, that is 8 ayes, 1 abstention.
I have not voted.
Oh, Regent Manson.
Yes.
8 ayes, 1 abstention.
Thank you. Motion number 2. ASU non-resident tuition online. As it relates to non-resident, international, and online students at Arizona State University, I move the following. Increase base tuition by 5% for the 23-24 academic year for undergraduate and graduate non-resident and international immersion students at all ASU campuses, and by 2% for digital immersion students. This action will increase tuition to $31,450 for undergraduate non-resident students, except for freshmen and sophomores in the Polytechnic School and New College, which will increase to $28,306. And for students at colleges at Lake Havasu City, which will increase to $11,324. For non-resident graduate students, base tuition will increase to $34,290. This action will increase tuition to $34,398 for undergraduate international students, except for freshmen and sophomores in the Polytechnic School and New College, which will increase to $30,960. And for international graduate students, which will increase base tuition to $37,044. And for digital immersion students, this action will increase the per credit hour tuition to $563 per credit hour for undergraduate students and to $565 per credit hour for graduate students. Is there a second?
Second.
Are there any questions or comments? We have a motion and a second. Suzanne, please do the roll call.
Regent Duvall.
Yes.
Regent Mata.
Yes.
Regent Herbold.
Yes.
Regent Pacheco.
Yes.
Regent Brewster.
Yes.
Regent Goodyear.
Yes.
Regent Kanya.
Yes.
Superintendent Horn.
Abstain.
Chair Manson.
Yes,
Chair Manson, that's 8 ayes, 1 abstention.
thank you very much. We will move on to motion 3, which is ASU mandatory college program and academic fees. As it relates to mandatory college and program academic fees at Arizona State University, I move the board approve the following. For the 2023-24 academic year. As it relates to mandatory fees, increase student-initiated fees for campus immersion students by $50 per semester or $100 per year. $25 per semester increase to the health and wellness fee, which supplements the operation of ASU health and counseling services, and $25 per semester increase in the student services facility fee, which allows for the enhancement of existing facilities and the planning and development of new student service facilities. The associated students of ASU oversee this fee. Increase the graduate student support fee by $5 per semester or $10 per year, which supports technology, instructional, and laboratory expenses, graduate student services, and financial support. Further, approve ASU college fees, program fees, and other academic fees as requested by ASU in its proposal and presented in the executive summary. This includes an increase in college fee pricing of 3% for college fee levels 2 through 4 for campus immersion students, and up to a $2 per credit increase, depending on college, for digital immersion students. Establishing 3 new graduate program fees in Certificate in Medical Nutrition online, Population Health and Psychology, Positive Psychology. Increasing 4 existing graduate program fees in Political Psychology online, Global Health online, MBA Executive Program and MBA Online Program. And finally, approve the establishment of 2 other academic fees, including a one-time $250 enrollment fee per student for undergraduate transfer student enrollment services for all new campus immersion transfer students beginning spring of 2024, of which $150 of the fee would apply directly to first semester tuition, and the remaining $100 would support services for new transfer students, and a one-time $250 enrollment fee per student for graduate student enrollment services for all new campus immersion graduate students, excluding the College of Law, beginning spring 2024. Of which $150 of the fee would apply directly to first semester tuition, and the remaining $100 would support services for new campus immersion students. Is there a second?
Second.
Are there any questions or comments? We have a motion and a second. Suzanne, could you please roll call vote?
Regent Duval,
Yes.
Regent Mata,
Yes.
Regent Herbold,
Yes.
Regent Pacheco. Yes. Regent Brewster,
Yes.
Regent Goodyear,
Yes.
Regent Canyers,
Yes.
Superintendent Horn,
Abstain.
Chair Manson,
Yes,
8 ayes, 1 abstention.
thank you. As it relates to motion 4, the setting of multi-year tuition and fee growth rates at Arizona State University, I move that the board establish growth rates that will apply in each of the academic years from 2024-25 through 28-29, including the following. Base tuition increases of no more than 3% per year for both undergraduate and graduate resident immersion at all ASU campuses. An increase of no more than 3% per year to college fees, and increases of no more than 10% per year for mandatory and other academic fees. Is there a second?
Second.
Are there any questions or comments? Suzanne, could you please do the roll call vote?
Regent Duval,
Yes.
Regent Mata,
Yes.
Regent Herbold,
Yes.
Regent Pacheco,
Yes.
Regent Brewster,
Yes.
Regent Goodyear,
Yes.
Regent Canyers,
Yes.
Superintendent Horn,
Abstain.
Chair Manson.
Yes,
Chair Manson, that's 8 ayes, 1 abstention.
thank you. Motion number 5, as it relates to housing and meal plan rates at Arizona State University, I move that the board increase the rates for ASU-owned student housing including residence halls, leased apartments, and family housing by an average of 5%, and increase the rates for meal plans by an average of 5.5% for the 23-24 academic year, as requested in Arizona State University's proposal. And establish a growth rate for housing and meal plans that will apply in each of the 24-25 through 28-29 academic years of no more than 10%. Is there a second?
Second.
Are there any questions or comments? Suzanne, could you, we do have a motion and a second. Suzanne, I do not need a roll call for this one, apparently. So all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Any abstentions? We have one abstention. The motion does carry. We now turn to Northern Arizona University. Motion number 6. NAU resident tuition. As it relates to resident tuition at Northern Arizona University, I move that the board increase base tuition for the 23-24 academic year to $11,352 for resident undergraduate students entering fall of 2023 at the Flagstaff campus. For undergraduate resident students not previously on NAU's tuition pledge program, and for all resident students at NAU statewide sites. This creates one resident undergraduate tuition rate for all NAU campuses. Second, increase base tuition for the 2023-24 academic year to $11,846 for all resident graduate students at the Flagstaff's campus and at NAU statewide sites. This also creates one tuition rate for resident graduate students for NAU. Is there a second?
Second.
Are there any questions or comments? We have a motion and a second. Suzanne, can you please do the roll call vote?
Regent Duval,
Yes.
Regent Mata,
Yes.
Regent Herbold,
Yes.
Regent Pacheco. Yes. Regent Brewster,
Yes.
Regent Goodyear,
Yes.
Regent Canyard,
Yes.
Superintendent Horn,
Abstain.
Chair Manson.
Yes.
8 ayes, 1 abstention.
Thank you, Suzanne. Motion number 7 relates to non-resident international and online tuition at Northern Arizona University, and I move that the board increase non-resident undergraduate base tuition to $27,600 for new students and for students not participating in the NAU tuition pledge program at the Flagstaff campus. Increase non-resident undergraduate base tuition to $11,352 at NAU statewide sites, and increase non-resident graduate base tuition to $29,338 at all NAU campuses for the 2023-24 academic year. Increase international undergraduate base tuition to $28,600 for new students and to $30,338 for international graduate students. Increase the NAU online tuition rate to $473 per credit hour for undergraduate students and to $610 per credit hour for graduate students. Increase the subscription rate for NAU personalized learning programs to $3,200 and for personalized learning for nursing to $3,975. Is there a second?
Second.
Are there any questions or comments? We have a motion and a second. Suzanne, could you please do the roll call?
Regent Duval,
Yes.
Regent Mata,
Yes.
Regent Herbold,
Yes.
Regent Pacheco. Yes. Regent Brewster,
Yes.
Regent Goodyear,
Yes.
Regent Canyard,
Yes.
Superintendent Horn,
Abstain.
Chair Manson.
Yes.
8 ayes, 1 abstention.
Thank you, Suzanne. Motion 8, as it relates to mandatory college program and academic fees at Northern Arizona University, I move that the board approve the following changes for the 2023-24 academic year. As it relates to mandatory fees, increase the information technology fee by $12 to $180 per semester. The fee increase will be used to offset increases in operational expenses associated with technical services, improvements to cybersecurity, enhanced NAU Flex classrooms, Wi-Fi, and student software. Further, approve NAU's college fees, program fees, and other academic fees as requested by NAU in its proposal and presented in this executive summary. This includes an increase in all levels of undergraduate college fees of 4%, an increase in the undergraduate honors college program fee of $10, increasing the amount to $360 per semester, an increase in the graduate program fee for physical therapy DPT programs by $2,200 to $5,200 per semester to support costs related to instructional support, student attainment, success, operations, instructional and simulation labs, and specialized software needs, and the establishment of an international graduate enrollment fee of $325 for all new international students beginning fall of 2024, consistent with the current undergraduate student enrollment fee. Is there a second? Are there any questions or comments? We do have a motion and a second. Suzanne, can you please do the roll call vote?
Regent Duval,
Yes.
Regent Mata,
Yes.
Regent Hareble,
Yes.
Regent Pacheco. Yes. Regent Brewster,
Yes.
Regent Goodyear,
Yes.
Regent Canyard,
Yes.
Superintendent Horn,
Abstain.
Chair Manson,
Yes.
8 ayes, 1 abstention.
Thank you, Suzanne. Motion 9, as it relates to the setting of multi-year tuition and fee growth rates at Northern Arizona University, I move that the board establish growth rates that will apply to each of the academic years from 2024-25 through 28-29, including base tuition increases of no more than 3.5% per year for resident undergraduate students at all NAU campuses. Base tuition increases of no more than 5% per year for resident graduate students at all NAU campuses. Increases of no more than 5% per year for mandatory and academic fees. Is there a second?
Second.
Are there any questions or comments? We have a motion and a second, Suzanne. Please do the roll call.
Regent Duval,
Yes.
Regent Mata,
Yes.
Regent Hareble,
Yes.
Regent Pacheco. Regent Brewster,
Yes.
Regent Goodyear,
Yes.
Regent Canyard,
Yes.
Superintendent Horn,
Abstain.
Chair Manson,
Yes.
8 ayes, 1 abstention.
Thank you, Suzanne. Motion 10, as it relates to NAU student housing and meal plan rates at NAU, I move that the board increase the rates for NAU-owned student housing, including resident halls, leased apartments, and family housing by an average of 4.25% for single housing rates and 7% for family housing rates, and increase the rates for meal plans, an average increase of 6% for the 2023-24 academic year, as requested in Northern Arizona University's proposal, and establish a growth rate for housing and meal plans that will apply to each of the 2024-25 through 28-29 academic years of no more than 7% per year for housing and 8% per year for meal plans. Is there a second?
Second.
Are there any questions or comments? We have a motion and a second. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Any abstentions? Superintendent Horn abstained. And now we move on to the university. The motion does pass. Let's move on to the University of Arizona. Motion 11, as it relates to the resident tuition at the University of Arizona, I move that the board increase base tuition by 3% for the 23-24 academic year for both undergraduate and graduate students at all U of Arizona campuses. For the main campus, this action will increase tuition to $11,871 for resident undergraduate students entering fall on the guaranteed tuition plan, to $11,546 for resident undergraduate students not on the guaranteed tuition plan, and to $12,718 for resident graduate students. And for Sierra Vista campus and associated additional locations, this action will increase base tuition to $9,693 for new resident undergraduate students on the guaranteed tuition plan, to $9,160 for resident undergraduate students not on the guaranteed tuition plan, and to $12,297 for resident graduate students. Is there a second?
Second.
Are there any questions or comments? We do have a motion and a second. Suzanne, could you please do the roll call?
Regent Duval,
Yes.
Regent Mata,
Yes.
Regent Harold,
Yes.
Regent Pacheco. Yes. Regent Brewster,
Yes.
Regent Goodyear,
Yes.
Regent Kenya,
Yes.
Superintendent Horn,
Abstain.
Chair Manson,
Yes.
8 ayes, 1 abstention.
Thank you, Suzanne. Motion 12, moving on to non-resident medical global microcampuses and UA Global Campus tuition at the University of Arizona. I move that the board approve the following changes. As it relates to non-resident tuition, increase non-resident undergraduate tuition 4%, increasing tuition to $39,340 for students entering fall of 2023 on the Tucson campus on the guaranteed tuition plan, and to $37,053 for non-resident undergraduate students not on the guaranteed tuition plan, and increase tuition at the Sierra Vista campus and associated locations to $37,254 for students entering fall 2023 on the guaranteed tuition plan, and to $35,089 for non-resident undergraduate students not on the guaranteed tuition plan for the 2023-24 academic year. As it relates to University of Arizona Colleges of Medicine at Tucson and Phoenix campuses, increase tuition 4.75% for all resident students to $37,789, and increase tuition 1.25% for all non-resident students to $55,960 for the 2023-24 academic year. As it relates to University of Arizona Global Microcampuses, extend U Arizona Global Microcampuses and programs to various locations with price structures ranging from $4,272 to $5,500, which is within the current price structure for global campuses of $4,000 to $6,450 per year, depending on country and student level. As it relates to University of Arizona Global Campus, establish tuition for undergraduate students at $590 per credit hour. Establish tuition for graduate students at between $765 to $840 per credit hour, depending on program. Establish tuition for doctoral students at $1,182 per credit hour. And establish the post-baccalaureate teaching certificate fee at $4,600 for the program. Is there a second? Are there any questions or comments? We do have a motion and a second. Suzanne, could you please do the roll call?
Regent Duval,
Yes.
Regent Mata,
Yes.
Regent Harold,
Yes.
Regent Pacheco. Yes. Regent Brewster,
Yes.
Regent Goodyear,
Yes.
Regent Kenya,
Yes.
Superintendent Horn, Chair Manson,
Yes.
8 ayes, 1 abstention.
Thank you very much. Motion number 13, with no changes to the University of Arizona's academic or mandatory fees, we will now move on to their tuition and fees maximum rates. As it relates to the setting of multi-year tuition and fee growth rates at the University of Arizona, I move that the board establish growth rates that will apply to each of the academic years from 2024-25 through 28-29, including base tuition increases of no more than 3% per year for resident undergraduate and graduate students at all University of Arizona campuses, base tuition increases of no more than 5% per year for resident students at the Colleges of Medicine and the College of Veterinary Medicine, and increases of no more than 5% per year for mandatory and academic fees. Is there a second?
Second.
Are there any questions or comments? We do have a motion and a second. Suzanne, please do the roll call.
Regent Duval,
Yes.
Regent Mata,
Yes.
Regent Harold,
Yes.
Regent Pacheco. Yes. Regent Brewster,
Yes.
Regent Goodyear,
Yes.
Regent Kenya,
Yes.
Superintendent Horn,
Abstain.
Chair Manson,
Yes.
8 ayes, 1 abstention.
Thank you very much. Motion number 14, as it relates to housing and meal plan rates at the University of Arizona, I move that the board increase the rates of University of Arizona owned student housing, including residence halls and leased apartments, by an average of 3.5% for undergraduate housing rates and an average of 3% for graduate housing rates for the 23-24 academic year, as requested in the University of Arizona's proposal, and establish a growth rate for housing and meal plans that will apply in each of the 24-25 through 28-29 academic years of no more than 7.5% per year for housing and 5% per year for meal plans. Are there any questions or comments? We have a motion and a second. All those in favor, I'm sorry, I did not ask for a second, did I? Now we have a motion and a second. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Any abstentions? Superintendent Horn did abstain. This motion does carry. This concludes the setting of base tuition and mandatory fees for the 2023-24 academic year and the setting of tuition and fee growth rates through 28-29. I will now ask Regent Pacheco to continue with the remaining items related to the Finance, Resource, and Capital Committee agenda.
Thank you, Madam Chair. For item number 4, ASU asks the board to approve the multiple year employment contract for head men's basketball coach Robert Hurley. Dr. Crow.
ASU has a basketball program that has had its most successful performance in the last 60 years or so. For 20+ seasons, we're a program still being built. We have proposed to the regents that we renew Coach Hurley's contract for 2 additional years, giving him a 3-year total contract structure. At the moment, we're very excited about this. He's very excited about this, and his brother, who coached the University of Connecticut to the winning championship team and the NCAA tournament, we've now said to our coach, Coach, come on, your younger brother. We'd like to see both Hurleys in the NCAA final 2 championship games. So that's our present objective.
Thank you. Are there any questions? I move the board approve the multiple year employment contract for Arizona State University head men's basketball coach Robert Hurley as described in the executive summary. Is there a second?
Second.
Chair Manson, we have a motion and a second. If you would please call the vote.
Thank you very much. All those in favor, aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Any abstentions? The motion does carry.
Thank you, Chair Manson. Now on to item 25, multiple year employment contract for Vice President Intercollegiate Athletics at NAU. We are going to be asked to approve an extension of the multiple year employment contract for Michael Marlowe as, again, the Vice President for Intercollegiate Athletics. President Cruz Fiera, please present this item.
Thank you, Regent Pacheco and Chair Manson. I do know that Mike Marlowe is with us today, and I would like him to please come up. Would love for him to say a few words. Since arriving at NAU in 2018, Mike has truly elevated the excellence of lumberjack athletics on the field and, importantly, in the classroom, and of course, within our community of supporters. The list of Mike's accomplishments is extensive and demonstrates a track record of excellence. In the interest of time, I will call out just a few that are emblematic of the exceptional work that he has done for our university. During his time at NAU, 46 conference championships have been won by our sports programs over the last 5 years under his leadership. $50 million in facilities enhancements, including the world-class student athlete high performance center at 7,000 feet in Flagstaff. 4 NCAA Division I national championships in 5 years for our men's cross-country team. And back-to-back, and this is my favorite of all, back-to-back President's Cups Award in the Big Sky in 2020-21 and 2021-22, recognizing NAU as the best athletic program in the conference, both for academic success as well as athletic achievements. And I would be remiss, and I hope not to be disrespectful and abuse the great hospitality of the University of Arizona, but I would be remiss if I didn't mention that 2 years ago, as I had just started my tenure as the 17th president of NAU, I was thrilled to see the Lumberjacks beat the UA Wildcats 21-19 The first time in 86 years. And we're coming back this year for a second. So I could not think of a better leader to advance our work on and off the field than Mike. He has built a winning culture throughout our athletics organization, brings the utmost integrity to his work, and has really inspired and galvanized our lumberjack community around NAU athletics. I'm proud to have Mike on our team. Look forward to the next 5 years of his leadership at NAU. I will turn it back over to the chair.
Thank you very much. Are there any questions or comments, Dr. Robbins?
Yes. Blakey gave me that opening. I encouraged President Cruz Rivera to make it down to the game because I told him if his team won, they could never take that away from him, no matter what happens. And he has used every opportunity to brag about this in private and public. As I told him yesterday, we'll be ready this year.
Thank you. I move the board approve the multiple year employment contract extension for Northern Arizona's University's Vice President for Intercollegiate Athletics, Michael Marlowe, as described in the executive summary. Is there a second?
Second.
Chair Manson, we have a motion and a second. If you would please call the vote.
Thank you. I am actually going to make a quick comment, being the local up in Flagstaff. Mike, I really appreciate the work that you have done with the academics and with the athletes up there. I mean, the old saw goes that the problem areas of universities are the docs and the jocks. And you have done a tremendous job of creating a culture of good in your environment. And that goes both athletically and academically and just developing good human beings. And so I'm really proud to have you in our community and I really appreciate what you've done. So we do have a motion and a second. All of those in favor say aye.
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 Any opposed? Any abstentions? The motion does carry.
Go Lumberjacks.
There you go.
Great presentation.
Thank you, Regent.
That concludes the Finance, Capital, and Resources Committee agenda.
Thank you, Regent Pacheco. Our next item on the board agenda is the election of officers for one-year terms beginning on July 1, 2023. And Jennifer Pollock will present this item.
Thank you, Chair Manson. Members, the board office asks the board to select officers for one-year terms beginning on July 1st, 2023, as discussed in your executive summary. The nominees include for Chair, Regent Duval, for Chair-elect, Regent Mata, for Secretary, Regent Herbold, for Treasurer, Regent Manson, and for Assistant Treasurer, Regent Reese. Happy to answer any questions.
Do we have any questions? Okay. Do I have a motion to elect officers for one-year terms beginning July 1, 2023, as discussed in the executive summary?
So moved.
Do I have a second?
Second.
All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Don't say anything. Any abstentions? The motion does carry. Next, the board will receive a presentation on student health insurance. The board has received a number of comments and questions from our graduate students on the limitations of the student health plan. And in response to that, the regents have asked staff to present information on this particular issue. And Lorenzo Martinez will do that presentation. Thank you so much. Welcome back, Lorenzo.
Thank you. Thank you, Madam Chair, Regents. I'm going to provide a quick overview of the Student Health Insurance Program, commonly referred to as SHIP. I think we have a presentation, some slides associated with this. Thank you. Can we go to can we go to slide 2? So the program came into existence as a result of a federal requirement that international students have health insurance. And rather than having international students sort of get their own coverage and or the universities establishing criteria and having to assess and manage that coverage, it was easier for our universities to develop a health insurance plan for students. And so in 1986, board policy was established to create the Student Health Insurance Program Committee. And that committee is overseen by the Enterprise Executive Committee, and their job is to solicit and procure and offer student health insurance. And so while the program was put together for international students, given that we had the program. It's made available for all students to participate on a voluntary basis if they wanted to enroll in it. Currently, there are 23,000 enrollees in the program. Just under 15,000 of those are international students. In addition, there are approximately 5,500 graduate assistants in the program. Packages for graduate assistants have essentially evolved to include the premium for health insurance for those graduate assistants. The last bullet here on the slide notes that coverage is not provided for dependents. A little bit of history here might be important. Prior to 2010, there was coverage available for dependents, but they were a separate risk pool. And even though they had the same coverage, their rates were typically higher in the neighborhood of 2 to 3 times the student premium. In 2010, after the Affordable Care Act was passed, there was a requirement in there that for these types of plans, there's a separate category of which student health insurance plans are part of. And the Affordable Care Act required that if you have the same coverage, you need to pay the same premium. And so the implication for the student health insurance plan was if it was offered to dependents, then that higher risk pool and that higher cost would have to be spread among all the enrollees. And the estimate there is that is a 12 to 15% increase to all enrollees if dependent coverage was included. And so the decision was made at the time to not offer the dependent coverage and try and keep the premiums for students reasonable. The other point that I wanted to make that's not widely understood because the discussion comes up on dependent coverage is that, you know, again, because of these plans and that parity rule of everyone paying the same premium, there is no sort of composite rate for families or those types of dependents. So the way the plan is structured, if you're an individual, you pay 1 times the premium cost. If you're a family of 2, you pay 2 times the premium cost. If you're a family of 3, 3 times the premium cost, and so on. So that sort of covers the eligibility and participation. Can I have the next slide, please? Then just quickly on the process, every 5 years, the SHIP committee solicits proposals from providers. We're in the first year of the last solicitation. And then every year, the committee negotiates with the selected provider. That typically starts in the fall, so that by the time we get to the spring, the EEC will have seen the recommendations of the committee and that can be finalized, and then prospective students have the information available to them on coverage and cost. Then also note is that the committee does solicit feedback from students. Each university has a student health insurance advisory committee that has undergrad and graduate student representation, and they do provide input to the committee while these negotiations are occurring. Next slide, please. Then the coverage is essentially the type of coverage you'd expect. You know, there's primary care, pharmacy, mental health coverage. You can see here in the last 2 rows of this chart, the monthly premiums that equates to just under a little over $2,700 per year. Again, as I mentioned, if dependent coverage was included, the estimate is that that would increase by 12 to 15%, which is about $330 to a little over $400 per year. I probably should have included information. I can make that available on co-pays and deductibles and that, but we can make that available. But we do not at this point anticipate any changes for the upcoming year on the premiums. And that's a result of we began that 5-year negotiation and award, and part of that negotiation sort of kept attempted to keep the premiums at the same cost in the first 2 years. And so we don't anticipate any changes at this point.
Lorenzo?
Yes.
So if I'm reading this correctly, I'm at the dental and vision coverage, which was one of the things that was mentioned to us specifically in the comments that we received. So it's dental and vision is available as an option for undergraduate students at $20 a year, but is not available to graduate students?
No, can you go? So that is the last slide, and I probably should not have labeled this coverage because it's not insurance, it's a discount plan. And this is sort of an add-on that's available as a result of the procurement whose main focus is the medical insurance. But as part of what the proposal included, there's this add-on for a discount plan. It's not insurance. And so this is voluntary. And if students who are enrolled in SHIP want dental and vision, they can pay $20 per year. And dependents are also, it's also available for dependents, again, because it's discount, not insurance. They pay a little under $10 per month. Yeah, this is just a discount that for dental and vision that ranges in the neighborhood of 20% to 50% discount, depending on the product or service.
But my question is, the third bullet point says it's not part of the graduate assistantship benefit package. So does that mean it's available to them, but they have?
Yeah, it would be an out-of-pocket cost to them.
Okay.
It's not part of the medical insurance.
I guess I'm a little, I'd like to, spend some additional time on, with the board staff, figuring out why this is so different than getting insurance through a company, which, has a family benefit available, but the premium doesn't get if somebody chooses a family benefit, their premium doesn't get distributed over somebody who doesn't. I don't understand the restrictions and whether it's just something within the structure of the universities or access or whatever it is that we're associated with that makes this so. I mean, it seems really problematic that by offering dependent coverage, we increase the premium on people who don't choose dependent coverage.
Madam Chair, we can research that because when we sort of solicit the proposals and do the annual negotiations, the SHIP committee does bring on a healthcare consultant.
Okay.
But the issue there is that for the type of for student health insurance plans, they fall under a certain category within the Affordable Care Act. And it's the Affordable Care Act that has that requirement that says, if you're in this type of plan and you have the same coverage, whatever the price is for that coverage, everybody in that plan, whether you're a dependent or primary, everybody pays the same rate. And so if you bring on dependents, that spreads the risk. And again, if it's just students and, they have a certain risk and are usually younger and healthier, we bring on dependents. Sometimes you have younger kids, which are higher usage and so higher cost. And so it's that spread of risk. And I think the addition to that with the Affordable Care Act is, I think the thinking there was because of the creation from the Affordable Care Act of the health insurance marketplace, that in theory would provide various options to people who needed insurance, that would be a viable option if people didn't want to participate in these types of plans that had everybody paying the same rate. For employers, it's a different category and they can have those sort of tiered and composite rates and that kind of thing. But this student health insurance plan falls under a different category and regulation.
Regent Good.
Yeah, so when we were here in November, during the public comment period, a graduate student made the case for why we should do more for grad students. Basically that, many of them are in a different stage of life. Some married, some with children. And I actually, and he did a good job making his case. We put in long hours. Our responsibilities are real. And it does feel like this is the bare minimum that we're getting, and that we ought to find a way to be a little bit more generous in our health insurance coverage. And I have no idea what that costs. I don't know if we're talking millions or tens of millions. So I am interested in learning more about this. I thought the fellow made a very persuasive case. I have heard it on other campuses as I've bounced around. And so this is something that I do have some interest in and would like to pursue further, but especially understand the cost, because I do think the grad students play a pretty important role. And it felt to me at the end of his argument more like just fundamental fairness more than anything else. Thank you. Regent Goodyear, I second that. I think there's work to be done here. I feel like we're missing something, the way it's structured.
Yeah, and I think, we'll spend some time with board staff investigating what our options are and go from there. President Crowe, you had a comment?
I just wanted to add for the benefit of other regions. So this is a tortured part of our relationship with the state of Arizona, not this specific point, but in general, the point of health insurance. We are required to interact and purchase our health insurance services from the state. We have much more cost-effective ways to deliver health benefits to our employees, our students, and our graduate students specifically. But because we are required to work through the particular arrangement, we've never been able to implement that. We would prefer to have unbelievable no-cost clinics or low-cost clinics on campus so that you could take care of 80% of the things that are going on. We believe that the structure that we have is just really not good. NAU is exempted from that for some historical legislative reason related to geography and services and so forth. U of A and ASU are stuck in this. The argument has always been that if we pulled out of the state insurance pool, then the insurance costs for the other for other individuals who are state employees, which we are not, would go up. And for whatever reason, our population is healthier. And so related to all of this, I think we should look at all of this. There's all kinds of things that we can do, all kinds of ways that we can do this, all kinds of ways that we could lower our costs and expand the benefits at the same time. And you're right about students and so forth. We have to find some way to do this. Graduate students in particular are very complicated. And so we need to find a way to enhance this. And then international students, it's a requirement of the government. This seems messed up. And so perhaps we can fix it.
Look at something.
Right.
Look at what our options are. Okay, any further comments or questions from the board? Lorenzo, thank you. Appreciate that. Next is the academic affairs and educational attainment items, and Regent Duval as committee chair. Would you please present items 7 through 10?
Thank you, Madam Chair. And with regard to the election of officers, if anybody wants to pursue a forensic audit, now would be the time. Okay. We have 3 items on the agenda today. The University of Arizona has a request for appointment of 5 Regents professors. Then we will discuss some board policy revisions and exceptions necessary for the University of Arizona to acquire UAGC. First, I'd like to give a report on the March 23rd, 2023 Academic Affairs and Educational Attainment Committee. The committee discussed current ABOR admission standards and possible revisions to its admissions policies. This discussion goes to the heart of the university system that we've built and where we intend it to go to the future, and has posed many questions for us going forward. Staff has begun organizing an admission work group to develop a revised admission policy recommendation for board review and adoption no later than April 1st, 2024. I expect the committee to report to the regents periodically throughout the year on this discussion. After the admissions discussion, the committee then engaged in a conversation with the University of Arizona and Arizona State University pertaining to UArizona's request to offer an existing program in Chandler. And the board has the committee has recommended to the board that we approve that recommendation. The committee also received an update on the strategic vision and plan for the University of Arizona's College of Applied Science and Technology, which is the Sierra Vista campus, and approved forwarding to the board for approval new ABOR committee charters. The final item was the board office's request for the authority to revise board policies related to the creation of the new board committees, and the committee approved forwarding that to the board for first reading. Now we'll move to item 8, appointment of Regents professors for the University of Arizona, and invite Liesl folks, the University of Arizona Provost, to present this item. I think she was expecting me to talk longer on the prior item, but over to you, Provost.
Thank you, Regent Duval, Regents. It gives me great honor to present for you our nominees for Regents professors at the University of Arizona. The first I'll mention is Price Fishback, who is a economics professor in our Eller College of Management. And Price stands out for being really a superstar in all aspects of a professor's job in teaching and research and service. He's an economic historian whose key contributions have extended to multiple labor and policy matters. His work as an economic historian is noteworthy in its methodology, which often involves data-intensive analyses, and in its dissemination, which has included many articles, including painstaking literature surveys, but also with books that are highly accessible. Some of his research focused on coal miners early on, and in particular, he demonstrated that though collective bargaining was critical to reducing the exploitation of laborers, coal miners were able to move around to different work locations to improve their individual situations. His analyses also showed that African-American and immigrant miners were often paid the same wages for the same jobs, but that they were less likely to move up in the job hierarchy. Dr. Fishback has been funded by national agencies, including the National Science Foundation, and has had a profound influence on our understanding of labor economics. His multi-year collaborative efforts to construct and analyze panel-level data sets at the state, city, county, neighborhood, and individual level enabled the development of a comprehensive view of the socioeconomic outcomes of Roosevelt's New Deal policies. He is highly regarded by his fellow economists nationally and internationally, and absolutely also here at the University of Arizona. He is a sought-after speaker and conference participant, and we are very proud to bring him forward to you as a nominee for Regents Professor. Moving now to the second candidate, we are bringing to you Takeshi Inamata in the School of Anthropology. Professor Inamata has been on our faculty for 22 years and has changed the way the world looks at Mesoamerica. He is a pioneering expert in the use of drone-delivered LiDAR or reflected laser light in mapping the terrains in 3 dimensions of ancient civilizations using cutting-edge science to discover knowledge about these civilizations that we really didn't know before his work. Archaeologists have traditionally thought that the development of Mayan civilization was gradual and that small villages began to emerge in what was called the Middle Pre-Classic period between 1000 and 350 BCE, along with the beginning of the use of ceramics in different permanent settlements. But now, after the work of Takeshi and his archaeologist wife, Daniela Triaden, and their international team of experts, this long-standing model has been upended, and teaching throughout universities across the world has been drastically upset. In Mexico, he's discovered a huge and previously unknown site of very significant proportions dating between 1000 and 800 BC, containing the oldest monumental constructions ever found in Mayan culture, and it's the largest site in the entire prehistoric history of the region. This is a disciplinary, shattering discovery and reshapes our understanding of the early history of the Mayans. His research has put him in the national stage, and he has established programs in Guatemala for students there to learn his techniques and to develop into future scholars in his field, something that has brought him great praise from scholars in that country and earned him the enduring respect of his colleagues here at the University of Arizona. Moving on to nominee number 3, Professor Chris Segrin from the College of Social and Behavioral Sciences. Chris Segrin's scholarly research interests extend into the daily lives of people and what is often considered the invisible illnesses in our society. He is the premier scholar on how communication and relationship shapes physical and mental health outcomes. He's made significant and lasting contributions to understanding how marriages cope with cancer diagnoses, to areas that some might not consider as contributing to mental health, which is how helicopter parenting ensues in mental health issues for children. He has successfully studied some societies of more vulnerable populations in society, including incarcerated people, parents and children, Latina women with breast cancer and their relationships with caregivers. The quality of Dr. Segrin's work is reflected in the extraordinary funding that he's secured to pursue his work from the National Cancer Institute, the American Cancer Society, and the Lance Armstrong Foundation. Dr. Segrin's reputation for service to his discipline and the university has been nothing but stellar, and I will point out especially that he's been an extraordinary leader of his department for 20 years, and nonetheless has managed to sustain a remarkable research and teaching productivity, and is indeed an exemplar of the triple threat, as we refer to it, in the university setting, somebody who's exemplary at research, teaching, and service. Overall, Dr. Segrin is an outstanding scholar, and his research on communication and mental health is widely acknowledged and demonstrated as having had a lasting and significant impact on society. My fourth candidate to bring to you, Kathy Short from the College of Education, has been a remarkable leader on campus also. Educators within the humanities have long argued about the power of literature. Dr. Short wanted to prove it. To that end, she created the most important research methodology for analyzing texts and images found in children's and youth literature, critical content analysis. Through CCA, she has demonstrated categorically how literary texts shape the way children and young people understand and interact with the world. The dozen books that Dr. Short has written, co-written, or co-edited have become the most cited in the field. They are seminal resources for educators around the world. They demonstrate Dr. Short's belief that our role as educators and scholars is inextricably tied to social responsibility. With this goal, she established the World of Words Center for Global Literacies and Literatures here at the University of Arizona's College of Education in 2007. If you have not visited it, I encourage you strongly to do so. It is a remarkable resource here in our community. More than 50,000 users from around the world access the World of Words website and resources every year. The center is evolved to be a vast international network of scholars and educators working collaboratively to enhance intercultural understanding and literacy initiatives in their respective countries. Dr. Short has obtained funding for her research from prestigious foundations such as the National Endowment for the Humanities and the Marshall Foundation. She has received the Outstanding Educator in the Language Arts Award in 2011 from the National Council of Teachers of English. Her colleagues elected her to the prestigious Reading Hall of Fame in 2019. Dr. Short has touched the lives of countless individuals around the world, and she brings great honor to the University of Arizona, embodying our institution's highest ideals. And my final candidate is Dr. Todd Vander Aar from the College of Medicine. Dr. Vander Aar's research directly addresses the opioid epidemic across the United States. Activation of endogenous systems in the brainstem can result in chronic pain, customarily reduced by opioids and cannabinoids, which are addictive. Dr. Vander Aar's basic research has discovered that chronic pain can also be attenuated by increasing endogenous pathways and neurochemicals that do not activate the addiction centers of the brain. In his research, he identified the neurotransmitters that may either promote or inhibit pain. Dr. Vander Aar's investigations of novel peptides and receptors have also yielded discoveries that will advance chronic pain treatment. He leads the field in how a single pharmaceutical compound can be designed to act at more than one receptor and subsequently generate synergistic inhibition of pain while reducing analgesic tolerance. To advance the University of Arizona's leading expertise in this critical area, as well as the university's health sciences strategic initiatives, Dr. van der Aar conceived, developed, and now leads our Comprehensive Pain and Addiction Center. And his collaborations with other university researchers have resulted in the advancement and generation of 2 patents and products that are currently in the market or in a phase 3 clinical trial. Dr. van der Aar is now in the phase of translating his discoveries into the clinical realm through developing novel, non-addictive therapeutics for pain while addressing the devastating impact of addiction in Arizona and in the nation's most vulnerable communities. He has also served as the chair of pharmacology since 2013, and under his leadership, the College of Medicine's Department of Pharmacology has advanced in the Blue Ridge rankings from the 50s to be the 7th among all departments of pharmacology in the nation. Dr. van der Aar's service to the University of Arizona is extensive, remarkable, and impactful. I present to you our candidates for Regents Professors.
Terrific. Thank you, Provost. Outstanding. If any of these individuals are with us, I hope you'll identify yourself, or if you're online. Oh, very good. Congratulations. Mr. President and Provost, what a wonderful reflection of the quality of the talent that exists on this campus. I mean, when we hear these resumes at each of the campuses, I mean, we just need to beam with pride, and congratulations to all of you. So with great pride, I move that we approve the University of Arizona's request for appointment of Regents Professors. Is there a second?
Second.
Moved and seconded. All in favor signify with an aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Carried unanimously. Congratulations, Provost. Next, the board office asks the board to review on first reading the proposed revision to ABOR policy 2-220, awarding of degrees. Chad Sampson with the ABOR office is coming to the table to present this item.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Good afternoon, good morning, Regents. Appreciate the opportunity to present to you. The materials are obviously presented to the members of the board, and we are happy to stand for questions.
And I want to again note this is first reading only, no vote required on this item. Just any questions today? Very good. Thank you, Chad. Moving on, the board office asks the board to adopt a resolution that grants exceptions for the University of Arizona Global Campus, UAGC, to Chapter 2 Academic Policies and Chapter 6 Personnel of ABOR policies for UAGC for FY 23-24 and 24-25 for a 2-year span specifically. Chad, any comments you want to make on this item?
No, we are here to answer any questions and look forward to bringing back the various policies over the next 2 years.
Very good. Any questions from board members on this item? Hearing none, I move we grant an exception to the University of Arizona Global Campus on Chapter 2 academic policies and Chapter 6 personnel of ABOR policies for UAGC for the 2-year span from 2023-24 and the year 2024 to 25. Do I have a second?
Second.
Moved and seconded. All those in favor, please. Oh, excuse me. I'm sorry, Madam Chair, we have a motion for the board.
Thank you. So all those in favor, aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Any abstentions? Motion does carry. Thank you, Regent Fall.
Thank you.
Next, the board is asked to approve the consent agenda. Items on the consent agenda include items 11 through 24. Does anybody have a conflict to declare with any of those items? Seeing none, I move that the board approve items 11 through 24 as listed on the consent agenda. Do I have a second?
Second.
All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Any abstentions? The motion does carry. Thank you. We now move to the Student Regents Report, and Regents Conyer and Reese, please proceed.
Thank you, Chair Manson. After an eventful few days, Regent Reese and I are happy to be able to report on current campus updates and make note of some topics of interest related to the student experience. So with that, I'll go ahead and pass it off to Regent Reese to start us off. Thank you, Rachel. I'm going to keep my comment today brief, but I first wanted to commend all of the students who participated in the Regents Cup. I was honored to judge the event and deeply moved and impressed by your stories and debates. It's exciting and encouraging to see fellow students engage in civil discourse and set an example for others on how to do so. For my closing note, I have enjoyed working with student government teams during my term, but looking towards my next year, I want to increase the communications, interactions, and collaborations we as student regents have with our student leaders on campus. This said, I am proposing a restructure of our current student regent and student government relations. My proposals encourage more collaboration and will hopefully enable us as student leaders to fulfill our positions to the best of our ability. I look forward to connecting with student leaders on this and sharing my proposal. And with that, I will let Rachel take it away. Thanks, Caitlin. And just to reiterate also to Chair Manson's point, in terms of the Regents Cup, as someone who had the opportunity to participate, I wanted to echo both of those comments. Thank you to the University of Arizona for hosting this year and also for hosting us for this week's board meeting. In light of today's agenda and changes in tuition and fees, I would first like to thank the universities for their work to develop multi-year plans to help families better plan for the cost of college. I commend the university staff for their flexibility in meeting the educational needs of the state and providing high-quality degree programs to students while also being cognizant of current limitations created by state funding. Although an increase in cost of attendance is not anyone's first choice, which both myself and Regent Rees recognize firsthand as students ourselves, we are also aware of the complexity of the issue and appreciate the time dedicated to not only develop plans which serve the needs of Arizona's students, but also the work done by the universities to secure outside sources of funding in order to lighten the financial burden of college on families across the state and keep higher education as free as possible. We hope to see an increase in state financial support in future years, but we also recognize the university's efforts to bridge this gap in the meantime. So thank you. Thank you as well to our student governments for being a key part of this process, providing input to the university staff and advocating for the ways in which universities' often limited funds are allocated towards students. It's not an easy task and their efforts have been recognized. As students and families weigh the benefits of college, I would also like to recognize the efforts being done by the universities to provide students with opportunities to develop applicable skills as they prepare to enter the workforce. It's undeniable that one of the major ways in which universities can bolster the value of a college degree is through their support of internships for students. Many career fields have a tradition of unpaid internships, and these internships offer critical career development opportunities that have proven to be important differentiators to full-time employers in their launch of careers upon graduation. So I would like to thank Roxanne Murphy with the board office for her work in communicating with the universities in order to gather more information regarding the current internship opportunities offered by the universities. I was pleased to see that all three institutions offer connections to students to participate in paid internships. In addition, are also using financial aid sources to provide funding for unpaid endeavors. It's undeniable that internships provide students with an advantage as they seek to enter the workforce, seen as the National Association of Colleges and Employers stated that students who completed at least one internship received a job offer more quickly and at higher first position salaries than those without internships. As universities seek to expand attainment goals across the state, they should be aware of the data from the University of Wisconsin, which found that across the nation, 52% of first-generation students took unpaid internships compared to 39% non-first generation students. It's imperative that these students are supported as they seek to increase their success post-graduation. As Regent Rees and I communicate with board staff, student government, and the universities to prepare to report back on the current state of food and housing insecurity among college students at the June board meeting, the financial burden of college on Arizona students is at the forefront of our minds. We would encourage universities to examine the resources offered to students, which would allow them to better develop their professional skills through internships, while also ensuring that they are able to afford their basic needs. We hope to collaborate further on this topic and welcome any input from the universities as we continue our research. Thank you. And this concludes our student region report.
Thank you very much. Our final item today on the agenda is the report from the Arizona Faculty's Council, and Dr. Penny Dolan will proceed.
Dear Regents, Presidents, ABOR staff, and guests, the faculty of the three universities, as always, welcome this opportunity to meet with you and share positive developments and concerns. As we are completing our first relatively unfettered academic year since the pandemic, We want to share with you some of our observations of the effects of the past few years. Economic insecurity is still affecting students in every area of life: housing, transport, food, and other basic needs. In fact, it has increased in severity and seriously impacts students' ability to engage in and complete their education. We look forward to hearing the Basic Needs Coalition's report at the June board meeting. And we would also like to thank the student regents for their excellent leadership and continuing representation of student concerns and needs. Many students experience mental health challenges brought on by the extreme disruption of their lives associated with the pandemic. So many of our students, particularly first year, spent most of 2020 through spring 2022 in an isolated and challenging environment. According to a recent survey conducted by Best Colleges, 95% of students say that COVID has negatively impacted their mental health. We are seeing students missing classes, failing to meet deadlines at higher rates than prior to the pandemic, and in general, showing symptoms of mental health challenges. Faculty across the board are seeing everything from increased absences to suicidal ideation. We thank the board for its past attention to this issue, and we request the board's continued support to address this mental health crisis by prioritizing specific mental health resources. We are also cognizant of the ongoing gun violence and mass shootings that are occurring throughout the country. Universities are not immune from these threats. In response, Arizona is restructuring its policies and response systems by hiring an interim chief safety officer and creating a campus safety advisory commission. ASU is increasing threat assessment staffing and has hired a community navigator to facilitate developing a robust threat response. NAU is reviewing threat assessment and safety protocols. We appreciate the increase in resources and funding on all our campuses to navigate these unsettled times. We also understand that there is a bill before the legislation that would allow guns on campus. Once again, we strongly oppose such legislation and urge the board to maintain its opposition to guns on campus. Each university faculty senate has put forth DEI resolutions in support of diversity and inclusion in education, and these resolutions are on each faculty senate's website. Education should be expansive, not restrictive. We appreciate the board's continuing safeguarding of diversity education. Without diversity education, we cannot prepare our students to join the 21st century economy and be effective, educated members of the Arizona workforce. Our universities continue to be challenged by inadequate state funding. We are supportive of and appreciative of ABOR's efforts to lobby for us with the legislature. According to the U.S. Census Bureau Annual Survey of State and Local Government Finances, which was compiled from 1977 to 2020, Arizona is ranked 36th of the states in their support of public higher education. Our robust university system is vital to the future of Arizona, and we need to support it. AI continues to challenge our pedagogical practices. If a student uses generative AI like ChatGPT-4 or DALL-E 2 to subvert the learning process, the legitimacy of authorship is difficult to assess. But rather than try to just prevent its use, we are all being challenged to find the beneficial uses of it as a tool to help in the learning process. In addition, detection tools continue to be developed, although it is somewhat of an arms race. Investigating academic integrity violations has now become harder. It will take some time and resources to retool our approach, but we remain positive we can adjust. Universities are on the leading edge of addressing this issue, and we recommend the formation of a faculty board committee to explore the use of AI in higher education. According to a recent issue of the MIT Tech Review, AI will be in the classroom one way or another. It's vital that we get it right. Thank you very much for this opportunity to address the board.
Thank you, Professor Dolan. This concludes the board's public meeting agenda today. We are scheduled to reconvene in executive session at 11 a.m. for review of assignments with President Robbins and other items on the executive session agenda. Following that executive session, we will adjourn. I'd like to thank President Robbins and his staff, Director Arnold and the board staff for all of their work on this meeting. These are productions. And I thank you, and the board is now in recess.